Good morning, everyone. We'll make a start now. Thank you all for registering on today's BIM Toolkit webinar. It's great to see a real representation across. We've got some engineers, some project managers with us today, BIM managers, architects. We've got some students. Welcome to everybody. Before I start, just a little bit of information about myself and why I'm presenting the BIM Toolkit to you today. My name is Sarah Gray, and I've been the product manager for the MBS BIM Toolkit since its release in April earlier this year. I've also been a member of the MBS team for over 13 years now, and I've worked with a range of specification and construction project resources and their users from across all sectors, including public and private sector. So today I want to touch briefly on the reasons behind the BIM Toolkit, but my focus will be about how the BIM Toolkit can typically be used to benefit clients and design teams on projects. A similar session was held for construction product manufacturers last month, and that's available to view on our NBS YouTube channel if we have any construction product manufacturers in the audience. So more about today's session. Here's an overview of what we'll cover. We'll have an introduction to the BIM Toolkit background, then we'll look at the toolkit in use, some advice on what you can do next, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. If you could post questions throughout the session, I have got a colleague here who will try and respond wherever possible, but what we'll do is we'll leave a couple of minutes at the end for responding to the questions, and if we don't get a chance, then we do make sure that we email everybody straight afterwards with responses to all the questions that are raised. So when demonstrating the toolkit in use, my aim is to paint a picture of the who and how and when of the toolkit in terms of how it might be used and the value of the BIM toolkit to yourselves as clients and designers. So as I said, this presentation focuses on the toolkit in use, but let's spend 30 seconds just reminding ourselves of the context of BIM Toolkit in relation to the Level 2 BIM package, government strategy, the BIM enabling standards. So the Level 2 BIM package was intended to provide the industry with the frameworks and standards they needed to achieve Level 2 BIM, with the April 2016 deadline for use of Level 2 BIM on centrally procured projects. However, there were two missing pieces of the Level 2 BIM jigsaw that were identified, and these were classification, a unified classification system for use across the entire industry, and a digital plan of work. And so the Innovate UK funded project took place, which saw NBS work with a number of industry representatives to release the MBS BIM Toolkit in April this year. In terms of the MBS BIM Toolkit intended uses and benefits, I've captured them very briefly over the next 5 slides, and I'm just going to let you read your way through those. But what I will be doing is I will be touching on these when I show the toolkit itself. So unified classification, the ability to assign and manage tasks, a library of object definitions, a tool to define what you want, a tool to describe what you intend to deliver, a tool to check that supply meets demand. So the validation part of the BIM Toolkit is still in research prototype, so that's not something that I'll be touching on in great detail today. However, if that is something that you're specifically interested in, please drop us a line as part of the after event email liaison, and we'll make sure that you are put in touch with the beta test manager leading that research prototype. A tool that can generate an outline specification, a tool that supports open access and open BIM standards, a place where digital construction products information can be found, and an industry recognised resource. So far, it's been referenced in lots of trade documents, including Trada's National Structural Timber Specification that was published at the end of September. MBS were on the revision committee for the recently for the BS 8536. The published revised document makes specific reference to the toolkit and includes a hyperlink, and it was also featured in the list of changes to BS 1192. So fundamentally, the value of the toolkit is in the technical content it provides and its software functionality. And it's really about supporting this concept of information delivery through the stages of the plan of work. So ultimately, the client is procuring digital information to help with the future management and maintenance of the asset, in addition to the physical asset itself. And this is a figure that was, or a diagram, sorry, that was taken from PAS 1192 Part 2. So let's see these things within the BIM Toolkit itself. Okay. So as stated in a BIM Task Group newsletter that was published in July, the primary objective of the toolkit was for construction professionals to be able to define, I'll take us back to the home page, the who, the what and the when on level 2 BIM projects. And they also described it as a keystone to enabling practical implementation of UK level 2 BIM. The level 2 BIM messaging is quite prevalent on this part of the site. And there is also information, so if that's something that you're not particularly familiar with, there are articles in here about the level 2 BIM package, which is a really useful article if you wanted to familiarise yourself with what I've just shown you on the PowerPoint slides. However, whilst the level 2 BIM message is quite strong on the site, it's worth noting that in its ability to deliver information, consistency and clarity of responsibilities across the entire project team, the toolkit offers value to BIM and non-BIM projects alike across the public and private sector. Since its first release in April, it's seen over 19,000 visitors from 141 countries, and it's seen over 3,000 projects created as people try to investigate the benefits that the toolkit can offer them. And at the end of last month, the toolkit reached the end of its beta phase, marking its true ready for use status. So in terms of the benefits, those are also summarised in its target audiences within the toolkit homepage itself, plus a nice 90-second video, should you wish to watch that at any time. What I'm mindful of is I'm going to try and scroll up and down the screen as slowly as I possibly can to give you the best experience, whilst also being mindful of the 30-minute window we have here. So in terms of the toolkit, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the real values to yourselves in relation to the technical content and software functionality I've just been talking about. Even before you create a project in the toolkit, there are a series of classification tables and a vast object definitions library that you can browse and use. So we'll just have a quick look at the classification part of the site first. So one of the missing pieces of the jigsaw was a universal classification system. The UK needed this unified classification system, which was built for BIM and based on ISO 12006 Part 2 international framework that covered infrastructure as well as buildings. The Uniclass 2015 tables that are available are featured within this fantastic article from our head of classification, Sarah Delaney, support you with the information structures you need across the stages of a project. From early stages, where you might be talking about facilities and entities, through to later stages in the project where you might be describing spaces or systems or products. So the Uniclass tables are structured to support that stage-by-stage process. The toolkit allows users to explore the Uniclass 2015 content by browsing it or filtering it, as you can be seen here. Or these tables that I've just shown you here, you can actually click and they can be downloaded into Excel format for ease of use with whatever function you want to perform afterwards. So that's the classification part of the site. So if we just head straight back up to the top of the screen, what we'll do is I'll now take you to, as I said, this is a really great article from Sarah if you have time to read it. So what we'll do is now I'm just going to whiz you to the top, and we'll now look at the definitions library part of the site. So again, before we even get into it, there's some great helpful articles here from some experts at NBS and the colleagues that we've worked with on the project, should you wish to familiarise yourself with some of the terms within the toolkit itself. So across the project, the requirements for information, both in terms of what the client requests and what the designer or supply chain provides, grow as the project progresses. So if we just go into an example here, which is some of the pre-populated information, if we take a look at the ceilings information, whether graphical, as detailed by a level of detail information, or non-graphical in terms of level of information, the BIM Toolkit has a library or a searchable library of over 5,700 construction project objects with associated level of detail and level of information to help define these evolving information requirements. So if we look at the level of information example here, what you can see is as you progress through the numbers from level of information 2 to level of information 3, so you can see the level of information builds. And the same can be said for level of detail, which I'll just quickly go back to. So exactly the same concept as can be seen. All of these are being classified according to Uniclass 2015, but they've also been mapped to NRM1 and the Uniclass 2 or MBS codes, should you wish to refer to those in your output when you're exporting these items. So these are a really useful resource to help professional clients when producing the brief or the EIR, where they're considering their information needs, perhaps at different project stages. But they're also great in helping designers of the supply chain respond to requests for level of detail or level of information in their documentation or their BIM execution plan, with manufacturer information in terms of BIM objects if you're producing a CAD model. Here, more generic objects, going down to more proprietary objects that if you click on them, that would take you through to those objects in respective MBS National BIM Library resource. And similarly, for producing the written information, perhaps within your specification, we provide information from catalogues at an early stage through to written product specifications taken from our MBS Plus library, and again, by clicking on these, it will take you to the respective pages where you can access that information for inclusion within your models. In terms of this definitions library, you can also search it. And what that'll give you is that'll take you to that particular information within the definitions library. And what you can see there is I actually typed in LV system and it's taken me to information about low voltage distribution systems. So to make it really easy for users such as yourselves to access the object definitions you need quickly and easily, we've added a library of synonyms, which means that if I type in LV system, as I just did, the toolkit will return results for the low voltage system because we've identified this as an acronym that's commonly used. And there are many other examples of this synonyms functionality in action. So all of what we've just looked at is information that's fully maintained and is free to use. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the BIM Toolkit as it could be used on a project. The example I'm going to use is a restaurant project that follows a traditional procurement route. So recognising the time that we've got for this webinar, I'm going to focus on a few specific stages in the project and discuss how the toolkit would fit within the project information process. In developing the toolkit, it's intended to fit with PAS 1192 processes and standardise as a way of working so that contractors and designers don't have separate BIM ways of working, if you like. So if we just go into my projects. So before we actually dive into the project, what I'd just like to acknowledge here is that projects do have a concept of you being either an administrator on the project, i.e. You are the one actually managing that project and you have full administration and editing rights, or that you've been invited as a contributor to a project. So perhaps one of the consultants working on a project who needs to view information or tasks that have been assigned to them, or perhaps wants to provide comment on information that's been assigned to them. So it has an administrator and contributor angle to it. So I'm going to just go into my project that I've already set up for the purpose of this demonstration. And as you can see here, it defaults to stage 4 on the screen. That's because I've set stage 4 as the current stage. However, we can go back into it and look at this project from the start. So before we get into the detail of the project, just to familiarise you with some of the components on the screen here, every project has the concept of stages, similar to the plan of work stages, but adjusted to reflect the project stages that could be used, whether it's a building project, an infrastructure project, etc. Each stage has stage details about it. which you can input yourselves. Projects have the concept of different roles. So the professionals who would undertake the different aspects of the work, of the tasks. And also projects involve the concept of tasks and deliverables. And these are all just about expressing the information needs of the person requiring the project, i.e. the client. And also you have the ability to set up the project and give the project overview, which I've already done in advance of this, just for ease and for speed. However, these can be edited, as you can see, within these drop-down roles here. And don't forget, there's lots of support articles available, which have some really lovely how-to videos, really short-term how-to videos on the various basic elements of the toolkit site. Okay, so let's go back to our project. Sorry, what I wanted to add as well is that each project has the concept of a participant. A participant is a named organisation that you would associate with a role, and you would probably identify participants at a later stage in a project. Okay, so at our early stage, this is a Riverside restaurant project. I'm using a traditional procurement route. And at this point, I'm the client who, I'm a developer of premium restaurants around the UK. And I've been able to base this on a previous digital plan of work template that was done in Toolkit on one of my previous projects. So the project lead that I've employed at this early stage in the project was able to get off to a quicker start in populating some of the tasks and deliverables because they were carried across with this digital plan of work template that they were able to use. There are also 4 other templates that you can use, whether you're doing a building project, basing it on CIC roles, infrastructure or geographical or linear infrastructure, and I'll show you those in a bit. But as the client at this stage, I've employed a representative industry professional to lead my project in these early stages. So it is that project lead who would set up the project and manage the toolkit process up until a point at which a lead designer was contracted, at which point they would then undertake that role. So at this point, the project lead is capturing my information requirements in terms of tasks and deliverables. So at an early stage in a project, it's probably unlikely that you would have deliverables. But as you can see here, my project lead has been adding tasks in. So these can be added to, deleted. You can add notes to them should you wish. And as you can see, each task relates back to these things that you might have heard mentioned, or plain language questions, basically just ways of capturing the information needs of the client. So at this early stage, it's more probably about the tasks, capturing the tasks. And as we move to stage 1, what I'll show you is how at this stage we're probably now considering our project in terms of our information requirements, in terms of tasks, but also deliverables. As you move from one stage to the next, the toolkit actually gives you the option of copying the tasks and deliverables from one stage to the next. So it's a real time saver there. Obviously, because I've already set up these stages, I've shortcutted that part of the process, but that is available. So in terms of stage 1, my information requirements as a client are growing. And these are being captured as tasks but also deliverables at this stage. So we've got some example deliverables there. I'm just going to add some others. So we'll have some public toilets in this. We'll add that deliverable. And we'll assign that. And we'll add the deliverable in. As I say, you can add notes in their required dimensions, and we'll add that in. So perhaps at this stage, actually, as the client, I'm expressing some specific information requirements, perhaps relating to the air conditioning unit that I wanted using on this project. Perhaps bad experience on a previous project has led me to wanting some more information up front about this. So again, following a very similar process as I've done before, we can add this information in. And here what we can do is we can actually specify the level of detail and level of information requirements for this particular element. And this is where, as the client, I'm expressing to those people who are going to respond to my information requirements, I'm expressing the increased level of information I want on this particular part. And what we could have done is actually assigned that to the architect, as part of that process. So at this stage, the toolkit's also giving handy reminders on the right-hand side here about the project team to other resources which are available from MBS to help you. So where and how does all this fit in within the broader design information process? So we're capturing, I've employed somebody to capture my information requirements as the client. And in defining the who and what and when of a project in this way at each stage, it's anticipated that the toolkit is used in conjunction with, and in some instances to help populate, the other tools and documents that you may be using, including a client brief or an EIR, specification and CAD tools, using those NBS Plus and BIM library objects that I showed you earlier, perhaps using the task exports in terms of populating a program of works, or to use this in terms of helping to populate parts of a BIM execution plan. So what value is this giving me as the client so far? Well, as a client embarking on this project, there's a financially tangible value in something like the toolkit that's helping me to ensure that my information needs from this project are clear and understood by the full project team, and expressing them in these simple terms, these which are being captured in tasks and deliverable terms. In setting this up, because I'm a client who's doing repeat jobs, the ability to invest this time once and then reuse this as a template on future projects is hugely beneficial. In terms of these information requirements being captured here, the expectation is that these could be exported using the export functionality here, and they could be exported into a document which looks a bit like this. So this is one that I've done from a previous project, and it's capturing the tasks and also the deliverables with LOD and LOI information captured as required. And the idea is that this could actually help populate part of the EIR document shown here. So for the designer responding to this brief, knowing the information expected of you in this way helps you to really focus your time and design effort in the right proportions according to the specific client requirements, whilst still demonstrating your own unique design capabilities for the project in question. And at this stage, you as the client, you as the designer responding to that EIR could actually be using the definitions library that I showed you earlier to help you ensure that the information you're providing in your response documentation is at the right level. So back to our project. Actually, another use as a designer responding to that brief, you could also use the digital plan of work document from this project. So perhaps the client, in issuing that set of documents as part of the brief, would provide the digital plan of work document here as part of that document set, which they would do by exporting the digital plan of work. As a designer responding to that brief, you could then be in receipt of that digital plan of work template, and you could use that as a project template to set up your own project within Toolkit. Apologies, let's do this last time. So it would upload that document, and then what I would actually do is I would use the toolkit in exactly the same way, except at this stage I would have full editorial rights. So I could edit, I could add tasks, I could provide comments in response to the tasks that had been identified by the client, and use this as part of my response documentation. So as we move through the stages of the project, so the information would build. And so between stages 1 and 2, there'll be exchanges and finessing of project proposals, responses to project documentation, where the toolkit can be used in those ways that I've just noted, with ultimately a lead designer being appointed in my traditional procurement route. And at this stage of the project, it is anticipated that the lead designer would then undertake the role of the toolkit project lead. And what they would then do is they would be managing and capturing the information requirements, so adding more tasks and more deliverables as you progress through the stages, adding more specifics on who would be responsible for undertaking the different roles of the architect, the structural engineer, inviting participants to that project, at which point the structural engineer, the landscape architect would receive emails inviting them to that project, and they would then see a participant, a contributor view of the project, where they could view and filter this information as they wish. With lots of filters along the top here in terms of by lead responsible. In terms of the lead designer taking on the role of the project lead at this stage, they would simply do the same mechanism of accepting the exported digital plan of work to set up their own digital plan of work template from the relevant stage onwards. So at this point, the toolkit becomes a really collaborative tool, and what we anticipate is that it could be used for discussions in team meetings whereby everybody's contributing to and editing the tasks as a collective team, all working together, building up the information. So in terms of the toolkit, the information requirements and the responsibilities are really clear at every stage, so the client's more assured of the information procurement at the other end. And for the design team, having this clarity of the information requirements, the level of detail, and what stage that information is required at, we hope that the toolkit really gives benefit to all of the design team and all of the project team. So I'm very conscious that we've reached the end of our 30 minutes. I know it's a lot to show in 30 minutes, and it's really difficult to do it justice in that time, but I hope we've managed to cover the key concepts and give you a flavour of how the toolkit can benefit. So just to summarise, apologies. Sorry about that. So in terms of what to do next, register with the toolkit, browse the 5,700 LODs and LOIs, download and use the classification tables, create your first project in BIM Toolkit if you haven't already done so. And please use the support materials available online, which will only continue to evolve as we get more feedback. And please, by all means, do give us your feedback, because that's what helps us to continue to develop the toolkit in line with industry demand and industry need. So let's just see in terms of questions. So we have a question, so can a contractor begin populating from stage 4? Well, it depends if, yes, I mean, I guess if the client hasn't used the toolkit, yes, by all means, the toolkit can be started from any stage in the project. It doesn't have to start from stage 0. Obviously, in terms of using it from that stage, there might be a little bit more work in terms of populating those tasks and deliverables, because you're not benefiting from any earlier work that would have gone in. But yes, it can be used at any stage of the project. And that's all the questions for today. Great, so what we'll be doing is we'll be sending you an email afterwards just to get some feedback, and thanks again for your time.